So for step 3, attaching the counter gear, well, we've got to cut off part A1, which is one side of the gearbox, and then we're going to be installing the counter gear, and we're going to put in a couple of bearings, not plastic bushings, because this kit comes with ball bearings, which is awesome. And then of course we've got this MA28, which is this metal shaft. Now it does show cut off carefully basically the places where it attaches to the parts tree, and it shows the X-Acto knife. But the easier thing to do is if you get yourself a pair of side cutters, these are a much better option, and it's a lot easier to cut them off. So that's one tip I would say for the whole kit. Anyway, we've got our parts, we've got our gearbox, so I'll set this up and we'll put this together. So the first thing we're going to do is let's get the bearings onto this counter gear. So you can see one bearing is going to go into that side, and the other one is going to go into this side down at the bottom. So if I use my pinky finger, that should do it. There we go. There's one bearing down there, one bearing there. Now you can see that the shaft itself is going to slide through the bearings just like that. And then that is going to fit into this hole that's in the gearbox. So before I do that, I'm going to grease this up. So I'm just going to hold the shaft like this. And it's interesting because if this was plastic bearings, they'd show you greasing up the shaft. But because this is ball bearings, they don't want you doing that. And usually when there's ball bearings, I don't tend to use the grease myself because it just creates dirt and grime, or the grease attracts all that, and then it can add to wear and tear. Now, obviously with this kit, because this is the gearbox, you're not going to see a lot of that. So it shouldn't, but I still don't use the grease. But you can see, there we go. We've got it all greased up. There's enough on there. I haven't gone, you know, I've been liberal, but not too liberal. And now what we're going to do is slide that shaft into that hole right there. So if I grab this is probably the easiest way to do it. That's going to slide around there, and then I can put the piece into the top. So now that is in place, and we've got the gear ready for the next step. So that is step 3. So we're going to now move on to step 4 and work on completing the gearbox. So for step 4, the gearbox, well, you can see that we're going to work with the one half of the gearbox that we built in the last step, and we're going to add the differential, and there's going to be 2 bearings on either side. Then we're going to close it all up with these 4 screws. So you can see there's the 4 screws that we need. We've got our 2 ball bearings, and then of course we've got the other half of the gearbox, our differential, and the other half of the gearbox. So I'll set this up and we'll put this together. So the first thing we'll do is let's get the bearings in place. So you can see that that one needs to sit there. Whoop. There we go. So there's the first one. And if we turn this side over, we're going to put another bearing in there just like that. So it's ready to go. And then we've got to grease up basically our spur gear. So I'm just going to run through it here. Get enough on there. And remember, when we actually put one of the other gears on from the motor, that's going to grease this up a bit too. So I'm not going to go crazy on this, but I'm just going to make sure that there is enough. There we go. Now the other thing to look at is you'll notice that the gear is showing the screws facing out that way. Now it may not matter, but I tend to build this exactly as shown because you never know. So we're going to take this one half of the gearbox, we're going to put this on top of there, which it should fit nicely, because you can see there, if I was to take this out again, it's naturally going to want to fit inside this hole and match up with the other gear, just like that. And then we're going to take this other half and we're going to slide this on top, and remember, this shaft is going to go into this hole right there, and that's going to sit on top just like that. Come on. Once it finds the hole. Okay, I'm going to turn this around a bit. Let's see if I can see that hole a bit better. There. Okay. So now there's our gearbox attached. So now we need to put in our 4 screws and make sure that this stays together. So we've got one. I'm going to put, and again, I'm putting them all in just to make sure that we don't have anything binding at the start. I need to get them all in. There we go. That's 2. And we've got 1, you can see right there at the top. And there should be 1 more, and I'll see, yes, it's at this side. That's going to sit right at the end. Okay, so because of the way this is, I'm going to use the other soft handle so that I can now get in there and start screwing these all down. And again, what I like to do is just make sure that you're going around the whole thing, making sure that all of the screws are going in properly and that nothing is binding as you do it. Okay, there's that. And there we go. So I've gone all the way around, making sure that everything's gone in nice and tight. And you can see the other side, it's ready for the motor and the other gear that's going to drive that. So that means that step 4, the gearbox, is complete. So we can now move on to step 5 and work on the motor.